Hi guys, let's talk about some ways that you can make your text intertwine, or what we're calling this the Ligature logo monogram project. But these are just some ways that you can use some new tools that you haven't really played with yet. So first one I want to show you is, you can see here I typed out using a font my initials, which is VRW. And you can see, you could tell that it's a font because it has a line underneath it. That shows you that it's actually a type and it's not an expanded shape yet. All of these are pieces of type. Whereas over here, you can see when it selects it, you see how it selects, it's like an expanded, it's a shape, it's expanded path. That is no longer type. So if you were to try to change that letter, type would not understand what you're doing with that. So let's just talk about some interesting ways you can adjust this type. First thing I want to show you is here. See how the R and the W, let's zoom in. And let's just take the R and the W, for example, here. So I want them to intertwine. I want them to touch. And this is a nice font for that because they kind of lend themselves to connecting here at the bottom of the R. But here, with the way that the W scoops around, it would be really nice if I could make it so that the W looks like it's actually going behind and then coming in front of this R right here. So I want to use that to change this area right here. So I'm going to change the color of the W temporarily just because I want to be able to see the difference between the two letters that I'm dealing with. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to make sure I have my layers open so I can see where these two layers are in relationship to each other. So the W is on top right now. And so what I need to do is I need to make this R come in front. So one way I can do that is there's a new tool called the intertwine tool. So I'm going to try that one first and see what happens. Key with that is you do have to make this font no longer a font. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy. So I have a backup over here. Okay, that's Command C, Command V to make a copy. Now I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to make both of these shapes. So I'm holding Shift and selecting both, and I'm going to say Object Expand and say OK. And now you'll notice that they are no longer type. Now they are expanded shapes, and you can see here how that works. Now I have a couple options now. Let me try the intertwined first just to see how that works. I personally don't like the intertwine too much, but you might like it. So let's go ahead and try it. So Object, Intertwine, and Make. And basically all you do, and you can see the little preview over here, is you circle the area and you can see what it did. It flipped it for me. So that worked actually pretty well. The reason why I don't like it is because of this. If you zoom in really closely, you can see there's still a little notch there. So that was the edge of my circle that I made. And if you look in your layers here, I don't like that I can't really do much with them now. They're grouped and they're intertwined. But it's still a solid shape, which is very interesting. So maybe I can adjust that just like that. Okay, so that's one thing you can do with intertwining your shapes. And another thing you could do, I'm going to go back. I'm going to say Command Z before I intertwined. So now they're still expanded, but this time, instead of using intertwine, I'm going to try something different. This time I'm going to try a way that you can make it look like they're both next to each other, but there's some space in between them here, like some white space in between the two letters. So for example, this works really nice if they're the same color letter. So I'm going to take my W. I'm just selecting the W. Oh, I still need to undo one more time. But I can look in my layers here and I can see that I want to go back to where they were individual letters here instead of being intertwined or grouped any longer. Okay, so I'm going to now expand, Object Expand. Okay, I guess the group is okay. It's just I don't want them to be intertwined. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this W and I'm going to do what's called Object Path Offset Path. And you can see what that does. It puts basically an outside line around that path, and it's really big. I don't really need it to be that big. But I don't want it to be further. Watch what happens if I change this offset path mode, if I put it at like 4 and say okay. You can see it gets way too far away, and I don't need that. So I'm going to say object, path, offset path, and I'm going to leave it at the 0.1. So it's much smaller there. It's closer to it. And let me try this. That's not going to do much of a difference. Okay, so I'm going to say okay. Now what that does is you can see here, there's still the inner W is still there, but now I also have this outer W. And so what I can do here is I can now use my shape builder tool, and I'm going to grab this tool, and you notice that it notices those two different areas. Oops, I forgot I need to also do the R. So hold on, grab them both. Object, path, offset path. Okay. Now use this tool here and grab everything. And you can see that it notices all these different parts. So what I want to do here is I can go like this. So I'm going to push Option so it does a negative. And it doesn't really matter because I'm going to go back to the original size of the W in the long run. See, there we go. But what this does is it takes away a perfectly even spacing in between this R and this W. So when I have them next to each other, instead of like one of the other things I was trying was to use the eraser to do that, this way does it in a way that is perfectly in tune with the letter that is behind it. So let's say I go like this. Let's try it on the R too. So negative, negative, negative. Yeah, so now you can see there, the R and the W, they intertwine. Ooh, there's a little moment right there. Bam, get rid of that guy. Remember, if you can't get to something, zoom in. All right, this tool. And if it doesn't grab, you have to select it. There we go. Get rid of that guy. And so now you can see that they are perfectly aligned, even though there is quite a bit of space here. So maybe you can adjust that later with using your white arrow and your anchors and moving them. Now you can see on this, look how many anchors are on this R right now. That is way too many anchors to kind of deal with. So one of the things I would do in this case, if I wanted to move this down, but it's just too many anchors, is I would say Object, Path, Simplify. You're going to notice what that does there. It takes it down, and you have this option. You can take it down even more. The problem is sometimes if you go down too much, it changes the actual shape of the piece because it just can't accomplish what it wants with this few of anchors there. But that looks much better. So now when I look at it, there's way less anchors. Path, simplify. And now if I zoom in here to my R, I can see now I only have 2 anchors to deal with. I can select just those 2 anchors. Ooh, there's something hidden underneath it. And I see this one. Get rid of that guy. So there you go. So now I can just basically move this piece a little closer. So that there's less space there in between those two. And I could do the same thing over here. And there's this little piece hidden. Get rid of that. Hold Shift and grab both of those and pull them, and you can see it still mimics this curve, so it still works really well. But I can just make it come a lot closer. There you go. So that is another way to do that. The next thing I want to show you is how to use the eraser to do what I just did here, and you'll be able to see the difference when you use the eraser. So I'm going to move these guys over and grab some of these copies I've got over here. One more copy just in case needed. Okay, so with these two, if I do the same thing, I overlap them, grab them both, expand them. And now, instead of using intertwine, I'm just going to use my eraser. And you can see here the eraser, if I just drag it through, it erases whatever you go through. If I drag through both, it's going to drag through both to erase. So you can use this, but be careful, because when you use this, it can end up with a very jagged line if you're not careful. I'm also going to lock the W so I don't erase that at all. And I'm just going to kind of go along the edge of the W angle there, and I'm going to erase the R. And you can see it does the same thing, but you can see here that this line does not mimic the W as well as it did when I did that shape builder technique that we just did. Try one more time and see. You also have controls. If you double click on the eraser, you can choose the size, the roundness, the angle of the eraser there. So you can play with that and see if that works for you. You could also do that, come back with your white arrow and then adjust, there's a whole bunch of methods. So that's another way you can use it if you want to create that gap. That's the eraser. What else can I show you? Here's another thing I want to show you, and it is called the pencil tool. Okay. So let's say that, you're sure that this is exactly what you want to do and you're ready to go with this, but you've expanded the letters, you like the way they are, but you really want the end of this W to be way fatter, or maybe the end of the R, you want it to swoop down further or something like that. The pencil tool is going to be a really good tool to use for this. So I'm going to move this guy out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to grab these two letters so they're selected. Now they are expanded. That's an object expand, because they're not text anymore. And I'm going to use my pencil tool. The pencil tool usually lives underneath your brush tool here. The quick key to get to it is the N. And get rid of that. All right, I can double click on the pencil tool and I have some things I can set. I want to pull the fidelity all the way over to smooth. And I want to pull edit selected paths within all the way over to 20. These two moments for the pencil tool help a lot with using it in this way. So you want to pull it to smooth and pull it all the way over to pixels. How did I get this window to open? Let me show you one more time. I just double clicked on the pencil tool, double click, smooth, and 20. I don't care about all the rest of these. You could try if you want to, but it's fine with me. I'm just going to say okay. And while this is selected, watch what happens. I'm going to start inside the W and then bring it back around. And you can see that you can, see, the reason why that one didn't work is because it's not selected anymore. So I want to use my pencil tool. Let me select pencil and I'll just make like that ball there. Whoa, why did it do that? There. So you can see the only key is it does have to stay selected. Otherwise, it won't let you add to the letters. So I'm going to now go in here and you can see these two things. The bottom of that W is still there, but it is also connected. See, here is an end point and here is an end point. So it somehow it overlapped them. So one of the things, I just leave it alone. But if that bothers you, because it does bother me sometimes, I can take the shape builder tool and just run a line straight through it and it will connect everything. Same thing with this one down here. Let's do that one more time. So if I grab this whole thing, you can see that there's a little flip where the line kind of swooped around. Use your shape builder tool and just shoot, connect. So that's another thing you can do to add to your fonts, to add to your shape, is use that pencil tool. And the last thing that I want to show you is sometimes when you do things like that, sometimes you might end up with a jagged line that you need to smooth out a little bit. So let me show that with that, a way to kind of fix that. So I'm going to use my pencil tool one more time. I'm just going to go in here and I'm just going to go like that. And so see how it's kind of bumpy. And what I can use is called my smooth tool. So the smooth tool is not over here in your tools on default, but you'll notice you have these three little dots here at the bottom. So if you hold down on those three little dots, you will get more tools that you can add to your toolbar. And you want to look for this one. It's like a striped pencil tool. It says smooth tool. I like to drag that on top of my actual pencil tool over here, and that way it'll put it into the stack of tools. So if you hold down on it, see now it's underneath there, and you can use that tool and you basically can kind of color on top of areas where, if you look here, you see how there's all these anchors and jagged kind of moments, like how that's not smooth right there. If I have it all selected, use my smooth tool and just kind of run over it. You see how it smooths it like that? So the smooth tool can help you to smooth things out. Sometimes it doesn't do much of a good job, but you can try it. It's a tool, it exists, and sometimes it works. So the smooth tool can help you to smooth things out if you just need to go back and smooth little things. Personally, I am more of a fan of just using the white arrow and going in and finding an anchor that you need to adjust and moving the handles. I think that's a much better way to do it, but to each his own. All right, there are more things to show you, but right now I think that's all I've got for this video. Have fun playing with your type tool.